Hi, everyone. We start tonight with a significant piece of news surrounding former President Trump and the ongoing investigation into the seizure of dozens of documents seized at Mar-a-Lago. Today, we're learning that Trump's personal attorney, Christina Bobb, spoke with federal investigators working on this case. Now, she is more than Trump's lawyer. She was also Trump's custodian of record at the time and was even present as the search warrant was served at Mar-a-Lago on August 8th. But maybe even more importantly, on June 3rd, Christina Bobb personally certified to federal authorities that there were no more classified material at Trump's home. But we're now learning that before she signed that certification document, Bobb insisted it be rewritten to include a disclaimer that read, quote, "Based upon the information that has been provided to me." She reportedly identified fellow Trump lawyer Evan Corcoran as the individual who gave her that information. NBC reports further that Bobb had to insist on that disclaimer twice before she signed it, according to sources who spoke with Bobb about what she told investigators. Now, this is critical, because maybe the single biggest potential legal problem for the former president is the fact that his lawyers assured the government that all classified documents had been returned after a subpoena was issued, and yet they weren't. In essence, the government was right, that somebody was lying. And now Bobb is working with the government to figure out exactly who that was. It turns out that Bobb spoke with federal investigators on Friday, and she sure seems to be pointing the finger at others. NBC reports further that Bobb had to insist on that. So let's go to Bradley Moss, who joins us now. Bradley, thanks very much for coming on the program. We appreciate it. So how big a deal do you think this is? I mean, it seems to me it's a very big deal that she is cooperating with the authorities.
No, it's very significant. You know, and there's the old saying, it's not the crime that gets you, it's the cover-up. And that's certainly been what's kept Donald Trump in trouble here. That's certainly why this went from just a dispute with the National Archives to a DOJ grand jury to now a search warrant at Mar-a-Lago and the ongoing investigation that continues to this day. That is what has put him in the crosshairs here. And with Christina Bobb, the one smart thing she truly did here was require that disclaimer. She would have easily been a fall girl if she had just signed a statement that said, "I verify and there's no more classified records here at Mar-a-Lago." But she required the disclaimer there saying, according to what information provided to me. That makes her into a material fact witness, not necessarily someone liable for providing a false statement to the FBI. That's why she was interviewed.
But it also seems like she's starting to point fingers, right, at other lawyers, because now she's got to answer the question, okay, if you relied on information from others to say, no more classified documents, who were the others? It sounds like she's saying some of the other lawyers on the case. We'll see if those lawyers end up cooperating as well. But, you know, at some point, somebody's going to be responsible, right? Somebody's going to have to say it was Donald Trump I relied on, or this lawyer decided and declared it. I mean, somebody's going to have to take the heat for what we now know was a false statement.
Yeah, I mean, the government is building a very clear and rather simple obstruction case. The fact that there was willful retention of classified documents almost becomes the secondary part.
Correct.
They're clearly going to go after someone for obstruction. It's either going to be Evan Corcoran, who told Christina Bobb to sign the statement, or it's going to be Donald Trump if Evan Corcoran flips and says, I told her to do it based off instructions from Donald Trump. That's where this is headed.
Yeah. But to me, the headline of Christina Bobb is now agreeing to talk with authorities. I mean, she could have refused, right, and said, I'm sorry, all of this is attorney-client, correct? I mean, she could have just said to them, look, if you insist on talking to me, you're going to have to take me to court.
She could have absolutely done that. She could have certainly demanded that they take her to court, and they would have had precedent on their side. The government was able, in the Paul Manafort case, if you remember back during the Trump era, was able to get Paul Manafort's lawyers to testify about specific instructions from Paul Manafort as part of their statements to the DOJ. Because those statements were false that were made to the DOJ, and because it was relying upon false information from Paul Manafort, the government was able to compel the lawyers to have to reveal those communications. I'm sure she doesn't want to put herself in any more liability than she already is. I'm sure her personal lawyer said, you're going to go talk to the DOJ and you're going to get yourself out of this problem.
Bradley Moss, thank you very much for coming on the show. Really appreciate it.
Anytime.
And in sort of related news, former President Trump continues to suggest, without any evidence to back it up, that the FBI planted evidence during the search at Mar-a-Lago. Yesterday at a rally in Arizona for Republican candidates Kari Lake and Blake Masters, he said this.
They lose documents. They plant documents. Let's see, is there a book on nuclear destruction or the building of a nuclear weapon cheaply? Let's put that book in with Trump. No, they plant documents. I mean, they have a terrible reputation.
But his legal team refuses to make that argument inside a courtroom. Why? Because we can presume they don't have evidence to back it up. The former president has surveillance video of the agents inside Mar-a-Lago. If he actually had evidence that agents went rogue, he would release the tapes. They'd present it as evidence in court. And here's maybe the most important question few are asking. Do we really believe that knowing the world would be watching this investigation so closely that agents would risk potentially being put in prison for many years to frame the former president for retaining classified documents at his home? Add to that, the former president is saying that he had a right to have everything they found there, and he wants it back, all of it.
So I had a small number of boxes in storage at Mar-a-Lago, guarded by Secret Service and my people and everybody. I mean, it's safe. You know, there is no crime. It's not a crime. And they should give me immediately back everything that they've taken from me because it's mine.
But wait, does he want the planted documents back as well? Now they're his too? At that same rally, the former president also went after his predecessors, accusing Presidents Obama and Clinton of mishandling documents. He also accused George H.W. Bush of this.
George H.W. Bush took millions and millions of documents to a former bowling alley pieced together with what was then a old and broken Chinese restaurant. They put them together. And it had a broken front door and broken windows. Other than that, it was quite secure.
This allegation drew the attention of Bush's son, Trump's 2016 opponent for the Republican nomination, Jeb Bush, who tweeted, "I'm so confused. My dad enjoyed a good Chinese meal and enjoyed the challenge of a 7-10 split, but what the heck is up with you?" Of course, the truth is that the National Archives sorted Bush's documents at a heavily secured facility that at one time happened to have been a bowling alley and a restaurant, but wasn't when the documents were there. The former president also alleged that Bill Clinton did something similar.
Bill Clinton took millions of documents from the White House to a former car dealership in Arkansas, kept classified recordings in his sock. Did you know about that? They say he left the White House with recordings in his sock, and they found them in his sock drawer. And the National Archives, which is the NARA it's called, lost an entire hard drive full of information from the Clinton White House. I wonder what that information was.
Except the claim had the same factual problem. The National Archives took the documents to a secure facility that used to be a dealership. And he also falsely claimed that President Obama, quote, kept 33 million pages of documents, much of them classified. How many of them pertain to nuclear? Word is lots. To which the National Archives responded, saying in part, the National Archives and Records Administration, NARA, assumed exclusive legal and physical custody of Obama's presidential records when President Obama left office in 2017 in accordance with the Presidential Records Act. They moved 30 million pages of unclassified records to a NARA facility in the Chicago area where they're maintained exclusively by NARA. Now, there's a reason you're only hearing these comments outside the courtroom and not inside. Because none of his lawyers, not even the most passionate and devoted ones, want to lose their law licenses for making knowingly false statements. Look, I get that defending law enforcement in this country is not popular these days. The far left have disdain for the police who risk their lives every day to keep us safe, and the far right want to attack the FBI and the Capitol Police whenever they can. But the bottom line is there is nothing more serious than accusing law enforcement of being so corrupt that they would plant evidence. It happens. Very rarely, but it happens. But if you're going to make that sort of allegation, you better have some proof to back it up. And it seems we know why the former president is not alleging it in court. Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your cable provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.